I'm so excited to speak to our guest today. He is a nurse practitioner that also has his DNP. He specializes in aesthetics in the New York City area. Please help me to introduce InjectorChris.
Hey everyone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's a beautiful day today in New York City after like a long stretch of gloomy days. So should be nice for this weekend's Pride weekend. I'm excited for that.
Nice. Hi, my name is Jonathan McLean, and I'm the founder and CEO of McLean Aesthetics.
Welcome to the dark side.
Let's go. So let's jump right in. I'm excited. I want to ask you so many questions.
Yeah.
Tell us, how is the aesthetic industry in the New York City area?
It's competitive. I mean, it's definitely a very saturated industry. I think it's been one of the main cities like where this industry probably began. So I think you can't go a couple blocks without seeing a med spa, you know what I mean? There's some bigger names out here for sure. But the thing is that there's so many people in this city that there really are patients for everyone. So it's one of those things that, although initially coming into like starting your own business in a city like this can be a bit overwhelming because you're kind of stuck on the fact that there's just so much competition. I think that you also have to realize that there's still a huge market and a huge opportunity to still grow and develop a business. So it's nice. I mean, it kind of works out pretty well because I have so many, people I can kind of bounce ideas with off here. I do have two good friends over here that I often I'll reach out to and just get their opinions on business, on injecting. And it's nice knowing that you have people that are so close by. In New York, when someone's close by to you, like they're 10 blocks away. You know what I mean? It's like, I can walk to someone's office in 15 minutes. So it's great knowing that.
That's super cool. Super cool stuff. Where's your office located?
So I'm actually right by Bryant Park. I'm on 41st between 5th and Madison.
Nice. And tell us a little bit about your business. I would love to dive deep into that. How hard was it starting it, and what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome to kind of build it up?
Yeah, I think that like any other business, like capital is a big thing. I had just finished my doctorate, and so for me, I was just kind of like, all right, how do I fund and myself and like start a business and sort of rely on trying to almost be profitable from day one, that's the tricky part where it's like, for most people, you have to know, with most businesses, that the first year you're not profitable. That fortunately has not been the case for me. I've been profitable since day one, so fingers crossed on that. Worked out pretty well. But that was a big fear of mine, was just like, how am I going to pay the rent of not just the space that I'm renting, but the place where I live. I did start off my business having a part-time job. And then about like 3 months into my business, I knew that I was growing too fast and I wasn't going to be able to keep my part-time job. And so 4 months into the year, I left my other part-time job and I became full-time in my business.
And that's how so many people start off, honestly. They're juggling two things at once, kind of dipping their foot in there. And then they realize, hey, this is too much. The demand is too big. I got to go full time with this or nothing at all. So that's amazing that you took that leap and did that.
Now, I think a lot of people don't realize that, from the outside, it looks like you're watching an entrepreneur grow. It's like, oh, they're just, they're doing their thing, whatever it is. But it's so many hours. I mean, between both jobs, I was working like 60 hours a week. I was working 6 days a week.
Wow.
Yeah. Sometimes I'd have to do 7 just to accommodate people because you don't want to lose the business, if someone's reaching out and wanting to see me in my own business, when I was working at the part-time job as well, I would come over on a Saturday or Sunday just to treat, 1 or 2 patients because, everything is so crucial that when you're trying to build up that reputation for yourself, you want them to tell their friends, you want them to, to spread the word for this. So it's like you bend over backwards a lot and it takes away from a lot of your personal life in the beginning, especially to kind of really get your roots put in.
No, I can definitely understand. It's like that sacrifice, but so rewarding, I assume. Good. So let's dive back into the beginning. How did you get started in the aesthetic industry, and what made you want to even get into this type of industry?
Yeah, so I think that this is like a two-part answer. So
Mm,
I've been in aesthetics where like not medical aesthetics for like 10 years. I
mm,
was a makeup artist for Mac when I was 20. I graduated college super early, wasn't quite ready to go back to grad school. And I was just kind of figuring out what it is that I wanted to do. Um, that was not too far out of the recession of 2008. So I was like, even had the bachelor's degree, I really couldn't find like an office job, you know? So I just decided like, let me just do something that I enjoy for now. And so I ended up working at a Mac counter at a Nordstrom in Long Island, in Garden City, and fell in love with all things beauty, skincare, makeup, everything. Eventually moved to the city. I worked at Bobby Brown for a year and then went back to Mac after that. Um, I eventually did get a full-time job working at Columbia Business School, ironically for the Entrepreneurship Center. So I worked there for 3 years. And I kind of always felt like that was kind of like me getting a business degree without having to pay for it. I got to see all these huge entrepreneurs from the New York City scene come in to mentor a lot of these MBA students. And I got to sit in on a lot of those meetings, which was really so fascinating to me because like I don't know. As I think I always had like the business bug as a kid. Like I always kind of felt like I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't know in what. Um, and being in that community, entrepreneurship community at Columbia, I got to see so many different examples of what entrepreneurship looks like and how it is that people actually do it. Because like you don't, and even then, like I mean, like you don't know how to start a business until you actually just do it. But seeing the framework and seeing how other people do it in the moment, like I would see someone who wants to start a food and beverage company when it was just a draft written piece of paper, and then 6 months later they actually have a product that they're like manufacturing. So like I got to see that from like the beginning to like the initiation of the actual outcome of what's good, but what's to become. And so it was during that time where I think that I was kind of leaning back towards to knowing that I wanted to go back into like to pursue medicine. I was pre-med in undergrad, and I always had a love for like plastics and cosmetics and aesthetics. But I think at the time I was too young. I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm ready to make that commitment to go for it. After working at Columbia and still being also doing makeup on the side, I would like go from my 9 to 5 at Columbia, take the train down to Times Square and work from 6 to 1 at Mac. So like hustle life has kind of always been, what I've done. But when I was 26, I finally decided I'm like, hey, I'm going back to school. I applied and got into Columbia University School of Nursing, and that's kind of how, from the get-go, from there, I was already knew I was doing that to become an injector. Um, and so while I was in nursing school, I actually got a part-time job working for a big New York City injector. And I used to do a lot of her like social media. I used to do a lot of website stuff. I would kind of be like in person, like admin, medical assistant, like kind of a jack of all trades, if you will. But it was pretty cool to see someone who has so much experience and the work that they do and kind of see how they run their business was a really good framework for me, knowing that I probably would have wanted to do my own thing in the future. And you kind of get to see like what works and what doesn't work, and like what would I do the same and what would I do differently. So for me, that was like a big like opportunity and great learning experience.
and that's great that you said that because it seems like you got all the building foundations for what you're doing right now prior, you know?
Yeah.
And some people don't, I feel so, I work with a lot of different people that are coming up in their career. And I always tell them, you have to put the work in early. Sometimes you have to work those long hours, do creative things to get into the field that you want to be in.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big thing, and that's amazing that you was able to hustle and do that for sure. I wanted to touch on the makeup thing because I feel like as an injector, you have to be very artistic. I don't think everybody can be an injector just because you're a nurse practitioner, just because you're a provider. I don't think you can be an injector. Do you think that played a big role in kind of your career right now? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that my artistry background is a, a huge asset to what I do. I've been working on faces for 10 years, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so for me, it's really translated so well. I think that for some people, I've been in, lots of trainings, and I've been with other injectors, and I've worked with lots of people. Um, you can learn you can learn the didactic of what we do without having to be an artist. You can learn
Yeah.
what toxins do, what the anatomy is, what the reality of all these fillers are and like where they go best and like how they should be injected and like, what it is that you should be expecting. But actually doing it is so different. I think that someone I remember, and I'll always forget the term. I think it was probably like Rana. During the lockdown, she had like a video that stuck with me. And she like how she went from being like a squirter to like an injector, like someone who was just like squirting product out versus someone who's actually like injecting and creating a beautiful outcome. And so I think for a lot of people, it takes time to build that artistry, just like it took time for me as a makeup artist to build my artistry and like, learn skin and learned how to, carve out certain features. It takes time to do that in injecting. But I also think that some people, it's just not in their wheelhouse. And that's not meant to discourage anyone from pursuing something. I think you should always go for it and try to see if it is something that's for you. But I think that it's also okay to try something and realize that it's not for you. I've tried a lot of things in my life that I thought would be, oh, like this is the direction I'm going in. And it just isn't really where it worked out for me. So it's okay to fail and it's okay for something not to be for you. You should pursue it and see if it's something you're interested in, to go for it, but it's okay if it's not something that sticks. And so I think that's a lot of the cases times with people when it comes to injecting. It's such a hot industry right now.
Yeah.
And everyone wants to do it. And it looks so cool. It looks so easy from the outside, but it's not. Like, I kind of call it like, it's kind of like the retail of medicine, you know what I mean? So you're dealing with people and it's a service industry. You work long hours and you are trying to make people happy all the time. And you also have to accept that sometimes you really can't make people happy. So it's a big, there's a lot to tackle there.
Yeah, I want to dive into so many things that you just said, because I know I get this question all the time. But the first thing is, how did you gain that confidence to know, hey, I want to pick up this needle and start injecting? Like, what was that bridge for you?
I think it really was just my makeup artistry.
Yeah.
I think for me, I knew that I have a good eye and that when I've worked with another injector before, I was one myself, there would be times we're in a consult together and I was like, oh, they should do chin, they should do a little bit here, they should do a little bit there. And she's like, that's exactly right. Like that's what it is. At that time, I wasn't injecting, I didn't know how to do that, but I knew that that's where I wanted to see improvement. And I knew what kind of improvement I wanted to see. So the artistry and the eye for it has been there for years. I don't think it's something that you're necessarily per se inherently born with. But like I said, I've been doing artistry on faces for years. So it's something that, you have to kind of go with your gut. And once you know that you're doing something safely, you have to just go with it confidently. You can't have that halfway while you're injecting. It doesn't work out so well. I've seen a lot of knowledgeable but unconfident injectors and watch them inject. And it's something that it's difficult. Like it's difficult to see that person work, and it's difficult to see the outcome that could have been so much better if they would have just like trusted their gut and trusted their instinct, because they are knowledgeable. When we're talking about someone who's done the training, who's done the work, who knows what they're doing, but they just don't have that trust in themselves. It's tough because at a certain point, like, how long is it going to take for that confidence to actually come through? If it doesn't come through, is this really for you? It's tough.
No, that's a very, very good point that you just mentioned. So confidence is key, and that keen eye, definitely, that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk a little bit about white glove service. You mentioned it a little bit about clients, speaking with them, and kind of providing that extra service rather than just a regular hospital or clinic setting. How important has that been for you to kind of grow your clientele?
It's everything to me. I think for me, from the get-go, I've always known that I've been so customer service oriented. I've done years of retail, so honestly, there's nothing you can really do to me that phases me or pushes my buttons at work. I'm so like, just like get it done. And I've kind of trained my staff to be the same, where I look for people who have that experience as well, on who can, I'm very fortunate that I haven't had difficult patients yet, but there are some times where, someone's running late or someone has like a lot of questions, and it's just one of those things where it's like, you got to go the extra mile to make sure you make people happy, you give them the best experience. My philosophy has also been that, I'm not going to take on someone who I don't think that I can make them happy. When you're I've seen a lot of this before, and I've learned this lesson from people who have gone through it that so I don't have to go through it. And so I've learned early on that like it's not worth the $500,000-$600,000 that you're going to make from the procedure, or whatever the money is, if you know this person's not going to be happy and it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. Like, you know that you can't make them happy, and you know you can't give them what they're asking for. And I think just having that transparent conversation has been such a game changer for me. I politely decline people all the time because I don't think that I can give them what they're asking for because I don't think it's realistic. And so I'm good at also like, you know, breaking it down for people for what I do think is realistic and how I do think I can help them. And a lot of times having that realism for people, it'll kind of wake them up a bit and they're like, okay, well, that does sound good. I would like that. Let's do that instead. And you kind of get to like rebuild, you know, what it is that they came in for and kind of reorient them. But there's still times where, you know, you have to politely decline someone. It's not worth it. Like I'm telling you injectors out there, it's not worth taking on someone that you think is going to be unhappy, because that's how you get bad reviews. That's how, you know, people want to have a refund and this and that, and you already put in the time and the work into it. And so it gets tricky because you're gonna end up having to give it to them. You should, because at the end of the day, you kind of want to just like, you know, protect your business. So for me, I'm very keen on who I actually take on as a patient.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because reviews and, you know, what patients say is everything. You know,
Yeah,
community is how you get patients, I would assume. So that's everything for sure.
yeah,
Awesome, awesome. So I wanted to talk a little bit about social media. A lot of people use social media as a leverage to get so many new customers, to be seen, to get, you know, so many new things in the industry. Tell us a little bit about how you use social media, and is it effective to you as a provider?
yeah. I would say about like 90% of my business comes from social media, and I would
Wow,
say about
wow.
10% comes from referrals, or maybe 15% from referrals now. Um, so it is my business.
Mhm.
It's in its entirety. I've done a lot of collaborations with different influencers. I think I'm kind of known at this point for collaborating with a lot of people in, you know, adult entertainment. So from the get-go, that's kind of been my little niche. I think that for me, my mother works in television, and so she has this saying where, like, you know, they're kind of in their roundup in their meetings where it's like they're constantly looking for the white space on the board.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what I was looking for, and I found it. And so I kind of, once I found it, I was like, all right, I want this to be mine. Like, this is mine now. And so I've just done everything I could in the capacity that I can in a marketing perspective to eat as much of that whiteboard as I could, um, so that it could really be something that I'm known for. And I think that it's paid off pretty well so far at this point. And I've kind of now looking at different avenues to kind of expand and look for different spaces of, you know, different areas of whiteboard, you know, that I can kind of consume. But that was really the first part of where I wanted to kind of focus in. I think that when you're looking at social media, I used to work in social media very briefly, after working at Columbia Business School. That was one of my examples of actually was not successful in that route. It was
Wow.
such a hard job. I worked for a beauty company, kind of like a Sephora, but for Korean beauty. And I just found it was such a difficult job. It was, you know, all the analytics and everything to compose of it. Having only a marketing background from what I've learned working at a business school and not something I actually had the experience of doing, um, it was so challenging for me. And I was something that I was like, all right, well, this is not for me. I'm leaving. And that was kind of when I also got accepted to nursing school. So it kind of worked out at the same time. So that was kind of like a blessing in disguise. But I learned so much from a job that I consider myself to have failed at. And that's everything that I use today is
Mm.
I used to have to collaborate with different influencers. I would reach out to all these beauty gurus. I would send them product. I would have them compose videos. I would have to make videos in house. I would have to write copy for people who are on set. So many different, you know, skill sets that I got from working in one job that I considered myself to have not really done well in, that I use every single day in this job. Because now I have my own social media coordinator that makes my content. And so I'm able to give them insight in terms of like, this is what people want to see. Like, this is how they want, you know, this is what they want need to talk about. This is the right angle that we should be shooting at. So all those variables come into the same play. So marketing is everything, and you have to kind of know what areas of marketing is not going to pay off for you and what areas are going to. And so for me, I kind of stuck to my niches. Originally, like, people would see my content, and I had some people who would ask me, like other big injectors who I do respect, and they're like, why don't you have any women in your ads? I was like, well, it's just like everyone in your city targets towards women. Everyone does. So if I put an ad out towards that, it'll just get lost. It's like throwing a shot glass in a bucket. If I put an ad out for men, I'm putting a shot glass into a glass. It sticks so much more. It doesn't mean I don't treat women. I treat women all the time, but most of my clientele is men. So throwing that out there from the get-go and using it for ads has really turned off to make that ad make me money by bringing in customers, because I can't just throw out all this money that into marketing, into ads, into this, into that, if it's not going to stick. So you have to really focus in on what you're looking for.
Wow, that is such a good point. And I try to preach branding so much because exactly what you just said. When you think of, like, maybe let's say, like, for example, plastic surgeon, not every plastic surgeon focuses on the body. Some focuses on the face, some focuses on being the best at this niche or this niche. You, as an injector, you're focusing on something that nobody else is doing. And that's why it's working so well, because you're specialized in it. People know to go to you because you're the expert in that specialization. So that's a really good strategy. Let's talk about it. So what do you specialize in your practice, and what makes your practice so known?
Yeah, so I mean, I do offer a lot of the same things that other people offer. I do all things toxin, filler, chemical peels, microneedling with PRP. I do laser hair removal here. I got my own machine when I got to my own practice. And sort of the niche aspects I do shockwave therapy, and I do the P shot for erection quality. So I do have more of, like, the sexual health components of my business. I do things that people thought was only sort of a myth, like Scrotox. I do it all the time. I do Botox for the penis as well. I also do penis filler. So for me, it's, I think those are the things that people a lot of times will think about when they think of me. But I still do everything else that other injectors do. I think that a lot of the things that you see coming forward is just that it's done on a man. So you'll see a chemical peel on a male, and then you'll see toxin on a male, and then you'll see a jawline on a male. So it's all the same components that already exist in marketing. It's just that you're not seeing it on those people. So I think that's kind of just more of the way that my work is showcased. That's also very different. I didn't, I'm not the first one to do any of these things. It's just sort of the way that it's packaged and the way that I present it that's so different.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree 100%. I mean, I am located in the South Florida area, and I see a lot of sexual wellness being presented in a lot of aesthetic clinics, and it's popping up everywhere. But even I told you a little bit before the scenes, I've seen your stuff a very long time ago, and you have been constantly in it. What made you know, like, hey, sexual wellness is going to be the trend that's going to break, or it's going to be up and coming? Because, like you said, people have been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I don't think that I knew that it was going to trend.
Okay.
I think that would be, I'd be taking too much credit there. I think that for me, it was just like from the get-go, it was sort of like, who am I as a person, and who am I as a provider, and like what it is that I can do successfully. And so for me, I think that I know that I grew up in a very, like, liberal household. I'm comfortable speaking about so many things I think that for some people they're shy about.
Yeah.
And so I think that I have a natural gift to make other people feel comfortable when they're talking to me about it. And so I knew that already from the get-go. And when it was, I was in nursing school talking about more like sexual wellness and health versus like more like the sexual aesthetic and wellness aspect, but same type of conversations that make people feel uncomfortable. I knew that I had a gift in making people feel comfortable, and so I wanted to apply that into what it is that I do. And so I really looked for those key procedures that I felt were impactful and that made a difference in people's lives, that were not going to just be things that people spent money on that didn't work. So I wanted to find those procedures, learn them, and then kind of apply them to my business and make it something that I was known for.
No, I definitely understand. That's amazing. You found your niche, so that's great. What trends do you see going forward in the industry?
Well, I think that for me now at this point, like I said before, I didn't know
Yeah.
what was going to trend. I wasn't part of it. I think that now I would like to consider myself a trendsetter in this industry. And I'm sort of creating this trend of men being able to pursue procedures that in every aspect make them feel confident about themselves. So opening things up for sexual wellness in terms of, doing shockwave and P-shot and, improving your erection quality, doing penis filler if you want to be, thicker and girthier, doing scrotox if you want lower hanging scrotum. Like all those things are things that I sort of want to break the barrier on in terms of if someone wants to fucking do it, just let them do it. I know that's kind of very like crass and candid, but that's how I kind of talk about it. And not making it something that people need to be shy or ashamed of. So I've now, I get inquiries all the time in my office about it. It's something that, people love to come in for. They feel, safe and comfortable coming here. But I think a lot of that also has to do with like the provider and the brand and the business. I have people that reach out to me that, they want to do this or whatever it is. And it's not to, I'm always kind of like, yeah, do it, like, pursue it. But I think that my marketing brain and my head, like, is looking at this person, like, if you're, I don't think that a lot of men are going to want to go to a female provider to do a lot of these things. I think that's just inherent. Just like, I know that eventually, like, I will want to expand and like break into the female sexual wellness space. And I know that I will probably hire a female injector to take on a lot of those tasks. It's just inherent. It's human nature. It's the same way. It's the same reason why a lot of, women will prefer going to a female gynecologist. So I think that for, sometimes when I see like my female peers who want to like learn these things and bring it to them, yeah, sure, learn it, and you'll do some of it, but I don't know if that's really going to be like your thing. And I don't know if it's really going to, take off for you, but listen, I could be wrong. Might eat my words. I've seen other people eat their words when they've said things to me. So, I don't know. It's kind of, there's always risk involved when you're trying to take on a new market. And so you kind of have to, when you're really ready to go for it, you have to kind of put all your eggs in one basket sometimes. It's the only way you can kind of fully commit to something. And I fully have committed to being in this sexual wellness and aesthetic space that, has kind of taken off for me.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I so definitely agree with that. I spoke to a lot of different injectors, and some of them have gotten to penis filler, and they say it is very high risk to inject in that area. What training or certifications did you do, or you would suggest for people to do if they were interested in that type of industry?
Yeah, so I'm actually in the process of trademarking my procedure for it.
Nice.
So I've kind of come up with my own method of doing it. I've seen it done a lot of times as well, and I've had to fix a lot of those, different things that people have done. I think that just kind of like, just like the face, there's a whole different level of artistry when it comes to a specific area of the body, right? Whether it's the butt, whether it's the breasts, like, that surgeons operate on, like every single area of the body takes time to sort of master, if you will, in terms of what it is that it should look like. And so I think that there's no difference when you're talking about the penis. I think a lot of times injectors think that because they've been injecting for so long and they can just kind of, do facial filler, that they can just dive in to do it. And like, no, you can't. It's not even just the safety part. Like I said, that's very learnable. In terms of like what it is, like the anatomy. I've done a specialty rotation in urology when I was doing my doctorate in sexual health particularly. So I have the urological training, so that's a good foundation that you kind of need. But even then, so like just understanding the aesthetic component of the penis, if you're talking about it that way, that's a big conversation that, it's maybe a little bit explicit, but it is a big conversation that I won't dive into completely now in terms of what it is that you're looking at, what you want to look at, what you want to see. And I don't think a lot of these injectors, like, I know my peers, I know lots of them, they're not having this conversation. And I'm like, and that's okay. Like, that's literally, it's totally fine. Like, it's not something that a lot of people are going to talk about. And if you're not going to talk about it, then it's not something you can actually do, in my opinion. It's a bold statement to say, but I stand by it. I've worked with so many adult, adult entertainment people. I've had these conversations all the time. I think that also part of like is just being gay and being able to have these conversations so openly with my friends. Like honestly, I have it with my family because we're very open and liberal about it. So just like knowing what it is that people want to see there is how I'm able to deliver these great results. And like, making sure that the end result looks good, feels normal, feels right, is it's not easy. It seems, like it would be something that you can just take on because you inject the face, but it's not. So I think that if you're someone who's candid enough to have these conversations, like, about it offline and really kind of like dive into what it is that people are looking to have there, then it's something you can explore. But if you're not, then I don't think it's for you. And I think
Got
that
it.
it's kind of, I think it's a huge disservice to patients because I've had some patients who have had to come in and I've actually fixed the work that they've had done on them previously down there. And they just told me that the first encounter they had with whatever provider they were treated by was just so uncomfortable, so awkward. Like it's like the injector doesn't want to do it, but they're doing it. Do you know what I mean? And I'm
Yes.
just like, just don't do it. Just don't do it. Like it's literally, there's so much money and business to be had at doing so many other things. Don't dive into stuff that you're going to half-ass. It's such a bad look for you. It's a bad experience for your patient. You're ruining the industry for so many people by starting off people's first experience being like that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I've sat behind the scenes in some interviews and I've heard some clinics say like, yeah, we have a fully aesthetics, but we are introducing this and you will have to do it. So I can definitely understand where you're like, oh, they don't want to do it, but then they're doing it. But
Yeah,
again, as a provider, you set your own expectations. So
yeah,
if you're not comfortable with something, don't do it, like you said.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I always tell people all the time where it's just like, also, just because you're trained on something doesn't mean that you should offer it. You
Mhm,
know, I only offer procedures that I am fully confident in performing and also correcting.
mhm.
So, like, you should be able to do it and fix it if it doesn't come out perfect. So, like, I've done sculpture trainings, for the face, I've done 2 of them. I still don't offer it. I don't feel 100% confident with it. I would want to do more trainings and I have more trainings planned to do it.
Mhm.
Um, you have to have that honesty with yourself, what it is that you can do, what you can't do. And so I think the same thing comes for all these niche areas. If you're not comfortable having a consultation about it and a consultation that goes, deep into what you're doing, like where someone is going to ask you a lot of questions that, maybe you're not used to having those type of conversations with people. There's a lot of people who don't really talk about sex.
Yeah,
And
for
so
sure.
I'm like, if you don't talk about sex, then you definitely should not be offering these procedures. It's just awkward for everyone.
Mhm.
I'm almost awkward listening to some people talk about it when like they literally are like stumbling over words. I'm like, yeah, you can say penis. Like, it's just kind of like, how is it that they're not able to do that? So it kind of it's the same thing. It's the same application where it's like, I've done sculpture trainings. I still don't offer sculpture. As for someone who may have been interested in learning, like, penis filler, but they probably should not be offering it if they're not able to really deliver it in a consult and also deliver a good product.
Agreed, definitely. Is there any conferences that you go to? I know conferences are big for providers, and I actually have a list of top 10 conferences that I think every provider should attend. But is there any conferences that you suggest for providers to attend?
It's so funny because like I have been injecting now for like 3 years. And so
Yeah.
I'm kind of like a pandemic injector. So when I first started, I had all these things like these tickets booked that ended up being like canceled and rescheduled and this and that. So I've only been to like one actual conference, which is the Elite Injectors conference with Erica Berry, Cox Josh, Wasim, and Hanya in DC, which was fantastic. They're awesome. But all my other training has been like hands-on. So
Gotcha.
I've been trained by peers and I do as many like individual trainings from Galderma Mers, and I'll do with Revance trainings as well. So whenever, because people don't know this, but if you're trying to get into aesthetics and everyone's like, oh, like, how do I get trained? Blah, blah, blah. You obviously, when you first start, you will have to pay a lot of money to get into different trainings. I personally recommend doing one-on-one trainings. I think you just learn so much more than going to a conference or like a weekend class. Unless you truly have no background in it, then that might be a good way to start because they are a little bit cheaper and for you to kind of get like an overall like introduction into what the field is. But I kind of also personally feel that like I just know how I was when I was trying to get in. Like I would stalk every single person's Instagram page, any big injector, I was on it. There's so much free information online. There's so much you can self-teach from the didactic standpoint in terms of like learning how this person marks the face, learning how this person marks the face. How does this person do a consultation? Okay, what's their approach to toxin? How do they like to do lips? What's their favorite product? All those things you can get on your own if you just do your homework. And I think that that's what a hungry person who wants to get into this industry does. But if you're not someone who's as ambitious as that, I think that those weekend courses, those conferences are good to start off with, and then you still have to do a one-on-one training. The one-on-one trainings are key. I mean, I would spend like a full day just like doing models with an injector by my side, going through it, every single aspect of the face. And I think that that's where you really learn. And then once you work for a med spa, if you're working for a good med spa, they'll be bringing in trainings, you know, every month to 2 months. I have the places that I've worked for, I was very lucky to get, I would probably get like a training every like 6 to 8 weeks. So they would just bring in different trainers from different brands to come in and we're like, all right, today we're doing lips. All right, today we're doing jawline. Okay, today we're doing Sculptra. So that was kind of key in terms of keeping up with everything. And that's what I do now. Like whenever you order something from these lines, you're entitled to training. So as soon as I place an order, I'm like, when can I book my next training? And they're like, wait, we already trained on that. I was like, I don't care, whatever. I'm gonna learn again. Like I just like, you wanna keep going through it a million times. Like that's how you get better at it. So for me, I always make the time and block off my schedule. I was like, I ordered something, you're coming in for 2 hours of training. We're doing it. Bring the product, I'm bringing a model, and that's how we're gonna turn it out. So I think that it's a long journey. It never stops.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I always tell providers when I speak to them, one-on-one training is the best. You know, you want to ask all the questions you can, get all the information, and then on top of that, network. You know, you're speaking to somebody that's already in the field, network with them. You know,
and they're probably in your area too, so it's a good person to like have, you know, to have their number.
I agree 100%. And like you said in the beginning, you have friends that you can call in case of emergency, or you want to ask questions or things. That's huge. Tell us a little bit about community. How big is it to have a circle of people around you?
It's so important. I think at the same time though, like just like friendships in real life, I think that you kind of find that quality is better than quantity. So you definitely need to have those people that really have your back, like you have their back. You know, I tell, you know, the peers that I care about, like whatever it is that you need, like if you need more Highland X, if you need me to run over, I'll cancel my appointments, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'll drop my stuff and go help you. And you kind of want them to have the same thing in return for you. Then there's obviously other people who are just more, you know, your peers and someone you like have conversations with on and offline that are just kind of more, that they're more simple. You're just exchanging little pearls here and there. And that's good to have too. You know, you can have both. But you have to know, like, you know, you want to have a mix of both, and you want to have those people that really have your back that you can help with. So yeah, I have that here in New York and I'm grateful for it. And I also have, you know, really good friends in DC that I really love that help me a lot with my business. So I'm grateful to have established a network through myself that I've actually met almost everyone through social media.
Wow. That's amazing. Social media is key, definitely key.
It is, for me it is, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any injectors or any peers that you admire on social media that you suggest people to follow, to learn from? They want to get in the industry, they want to learn more tips about the industry?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like following people on Instagram, I think that people who I look to a lot, everyone knows who and follow Injector Bunny, everyone knows Erica. Someone else that I follow a lot. I feel like these days I'm like looking so much less because I'm always focusing on posting.
Yeah.
But like Ronna Kelly in Chicago does really great stuff. Julie Kaplan does great stuff. I'm gonna give a shout out to one of my friends who's kind of one of my mentors in New York City. She doesn't have a huge following on Instagram, but I mean, she has so much knowledge on there, and she's like a laser guru. Her name's Nurse Gigi. Her name's Genevieve. She is one of my good friends, and I consider her a mentor and someone who I look to in terms of all things, injecting and business. She's been a huge inspiration for me doing my own thing. So that's one of my rocks here in New York City. So definitely give her a follow, because if you're someone who's looking to learn about lasers, she's your person. She's been doing lasers for years.
Wow, amazing, amazing. I'm gonna drop all those names below so everybody can go check them out and learn a little bit more. So thank you so much, InjectorChris, for sitting down with me and talking a little bit more about the aesthetic industry. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you have planned next.
Sure. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at InjectorChris. And next I had planned, I'm currently working on scaling my business. I'm hoping to have my own commercial space for the new year. And so hopefully you guys will see me in a bigger space, and you'll see more of that on Instagram.
Nice, nice. Well, until next time, bye.
Bye. Thank you so much.